Okay guys, so I'm going to go over basically my thoughts and opinions on how to become a software engineer. There's lots of videos out there, everybody's different, but this is just my take on it, and just hope this helps somebody out there. I know when I was trying to become a software engineer, I was constantly looking for videos and any tips that I could possibly find, and I really appreciated those videos. So hopefully this video can do the same for at least a few people out there. So obviously there's a few different routes you can go when you're trying to become a software engineer. So obviously you're going to have the degree, you're going to have boot camp, and you're going to be self-taught is another option. So I kind of listed the pros and the cons here for each one of these. Me personally, I went the degree route. So I did do the bachelor's degree in computer science. I do have friends who went the boot camp route, and I do know people who went the self-taught route. Obviously there's pros and cons of each, and I'm going to go over those real quick with you. Obviously with the degree, I have the most input out of the three because this is the route that I went. So obviously the cons are pretty obvious. So you're looking at money. So if you go to a university, even if you do like your first 2 years at a community college and you pay out of the pocket and you work part-time, which is what I did, you could maybe pay off your first 2 years, and then you only have about 2 or 3 years at a university that you really have to pay for. Maybe you'll get some financial aid. Basically, you're looking at anywhere from, I'd say, $20,000 to $50,000 in student loan debt. Your time, obviously, for a computer science degree especially, you're looking at probably 5 years. And difficulty. So there's a lot of math and there's a lot of science. So you're going to have to take physics, a lot of chemistry, biology, calculus 1, calculus 2, discrete mathematics, a lot of those difficult courses that you are going to have to take. So difficulty, you're going to take a lot of classes that you're probably not interested in. So if you don't really like math and you don't like science, this is not going to be a fun route to go. But if you can go that route, if you can spend the money, the time, and dedicate all that hard work for those hard courses, it does pay off. So the good thing is if you have a computer science degree, a lot of doors open for you, and it really creates job security. That 4-year degree or that bachelor's degree, nobody can take that away from you. Obviously, going to get a degree, you're going to have the structure. You're going to have everything laid out for you as far as, hey, I just need to show up to class, do the work, and finish this degree. So the structure is nice. The job security is very nice. With a computer science degree right now, lots of doors open, whether it's software engineer, DevOps engineer, network administration. There's a lot of different routes you can go with a computer science degree. So that's kind of the reason why I went for it. And I put money here because obviously you have to pay quite a bit to get the degree. But once you get the degree, usually you are going to start out with a higher salary compared to the other option. I know somebody who went the boot camp option. They did get a 4-year degree, but it was in psychology. They were going for neuroscience. So they ended up getting that neuroscience degree, which was a 4-year degree. But then they decided, hey, I don't want to keep doing school. This is not for me. I'd rather jump into software engineering. So they didn't want to go back and do another 4-year degree. So they chose the boot camp. So this boot camp, the ones that I've seen are about 1 to 2 years. I think the one he actually took was 6 months, but it literally is a full-time job. If you're doing this it's 6 months, but it is very intensive. This 6 months, it's more than a 9 to 5. From what I hear, I have a buddy who did the boot camp, and he basically said it was all day. He would start at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. He would do his coursework, but then he would be working throughout the night just to kind of catch up on things. Obviously, the pros of this is the structure. It's a lot cheaper than the degree. So I think you might be looking at like $15,000 for a lot of on average, maybe $10,000 to $15,000 for the boot camps. Obviously fast, so you're looking at maybe on average around 6 months. Skills. So I put skills here because the boot camp is nice because with a degree, you're learning a lot of the low-level stuff. You're taking a lot of math, you're taking a lot of science, you're taking a lot of low-level programming. There's computer theory. There's basically a lot of data structures and algorithms. That stuff's good to know, and it's really good foundation. But bootcamp, it teaches you, usually they're gonna have like up-to-date skills that you need when you're actually at your job. So degree, you might do Java or C++, but bootcamp, a lot of times they're gonna do the front end and the back end, and you're gonna be working on a lot of projects. But from what I see, a lot of the boot camps are using like JavaScript frameworks, whether it's like React, Node.js. It's basically those new frameworks that all the companies are looking for. And obviously the con of that is what I've heard from my buddy who went to boot camp is he didn't have the low level understanding, the principles. He didn't take the time for the object oriented and a lot of the low level stuff. The architecture of a computer, how the memory works, things like that. You're going to get that in a degree. So, in my opinion, if you got the degree, you have the fundamentals to basically learn a lot faster. So once you get the degree and you learn like the low-level stuff, and you take some maybe Java, C++, or Python, and you know your core programming, all these frameworks and stuff, they're really easy for you to pick up and learn. So bootcamp, obviously job security, your job security is not going to be as good with a degree. You know, if you're applying for a job with somebody who has a CS degree versus somebody in bootcamp, more than likely the person who spent the time and money to get the degree is usually probably going to get that job. But I'm not bashing bootcamp. I think it's a good option. I've told a lot of people, if I were to go back in time, if I were to graduate high school, I would probably go this route first and see if it works. Because I mean, you're thinking out of high school, I go do this 6 months, I pay 15 grand, and I might be able to land a job and get right in the door. You can always go back and spend the time and the money on the degree, but I think this is worth a shot. Because if you could spend 6 months and $15,000, get the skills you need and jump into the career, yeah, your first job the salary isn't going to be as high usually from what I've seen. But when you get about 3 years or so into the career, your salary is going to jump right up to somebody who has a CS degree. Again, your resume is always probably going to look a little better with that CS degree when you're moving job to job. I think this is a great route though. It's fast, there's structure, it's a lot cheaper. You're getting the skills that you're probably going to use on the job right away. But the cons would be maybe less job security, and you don't learn all the fundamental principles. Self-taught, I know one person who is self-taught. So I would say pros, obviously it's free. That's probably the big one. I'd say the cons, you have to be really motivated because there's no structure. I mean, you would have to create a map and figure out the skills you need, and job security. Even if you're self-taught, again, it's going to be the same thing. You get your first job, they're probably going to be paying you maybe $40,000, $50,000 a year for your first couple years or so. With a CS degree, usually you can get your foot in the door and start out making 70 to 100K right away. Obviously, it just depends on your area and the company that you're working for. So yeah, that's just my thought. My advice is usually to somebody who's trying to be a software engineer. I like two options. One would be, hey, try the bootcamp first. It's 6 months, especially if you just graduated high school. I recommend giving this a shot. Jumping in 6 months, 15 grand. It's cheap, fast. You're gonna have some skills. See if you can get a job that way. But if you think you're good with the math and the science, and you do want to get a 4-year degree under your belt, this is a good option as well. I also tell people that you don't have to get a CS, a computer science degree. A lot of the software engineers that I work with do not have computer science degrees. In my opinion, as long as you have some kind of IT degree where you did a little bit of programming, maybe you took some database class and some DevOps, is it going to look better on your resume? Yes. Are more doors going to be open? Yes. But in my opinion, there's other degrees out there. You could do a web development degree. There's going to be more software development related degrees. There's a lot of different degrees or majors out there now. So if you go this route and you're not big into math and science, I would say just get some kind of IT degree, or you pick up a few programming classes, maybe some database DevOps, and I think you'll be good. You'll get your foot in the door. You'll have a 4-year degree. That's a good option. Bootcamp, good option. Self-taught. I don't know. This seems a very difficult route to me. But if I did go this route, I would be looking at like free code camp. I would get some kind of certification, whether it's free. I know free code camp offers a free certification. Maybe you get an AWS certification. But this is going to rely heavily on projects, and you're going to have to be really confident when you go into an interview. Okay, so the next thing I broke down here is some skills. So no matter which way you decide to go, I think there's some skills that you'll need to know to get into an interview and land a job. So obviously, programming language, you need to have experience, you need to know the fundamentals, you need to know, obviously go through your introductory to Python or Java or JavaScript. These are the 3 most popular languages right now. I'd say JavaScript is pretty huge. That's going to be front-end stuff. I work in Java, object-oriented. Python, really powerful language, is really blowing up. Either 3 of these languages, I would choose one of them. And then you'll need to know some database, so some SQL. You want to know a little bit of the front end and the back end, in my opinion. So I would do HTML, CSS, some introductory stuff. I would get pretty good with one of these languages where you can create a project and you don't really need to reference a book too much. And then I put DevOps on here, so when you get into a job interview, they might talk about DevOps, so that's going to be basically your infrastructure. So when you're coding applications, a lot of that's going to deal with like AWS or Microsoft Azure, just your infrastructure, and basically how are you deploying those applications. So you want to look at like Docker, Kubernetes, basically GitLab. So you want to look into continuous integration and continuous deployment. So when you create an application, you're going to have like a pipeline where it builds an image using Docker, and then that image is deployed using Kubernetes, and you're deploying that on an AWS server, an EC2 instance. But if you don't know that terminology that I just talked about, I would look into DevOps, get some tutorials, and then communication. Communication is going to be key. I put certifications on here, so my advice would be AWS. Go get the Cloud Practitioner certification. You can literally study for this for like 3 or 4 days with no experience at all and pass. This is an easy certification to get, the CCP, Cloud Practitioner Exam. Check that box, put that on your resume. That is really good to have. AWS is just taking over right now. All companies are moving to the cloud and moving to AWS or Azure or some kind of cloud. Literally, you could study for maybe 8 to 20 hours and pass. I don't care if you have any experience with cloud or not. This is an easy cert to get. Go get it. I would recommend going to free code camp, and especially if you're going one of these routes, it's free, it's fun. It could probably take you about a month or 2 to complete. It usually goes over a lot of front-end stuff. I think it's JavaScript, HTML, CSS. Check that box. You get these 2 on your resume, you're looking pretty good, and they're pretty easy. You could get these just in a couple months. And you could add those to your resume for any one of these options. So resume, interview, this is just my experience. Projects. You definitely want to have a project that you worked on from front end to back end. So I had a couple projects that I did the front end and the back end before I started applying to jobs. So I used Java, with Spring and a SQL database all connected, and I deployed this application and I went to an interview and I could confidently talk about my projects. That's huge. If you can go into an interview, they might be asking you questions that you don't know, but if you could steer the interview in a direction to talk about one of your projects where you worked the front end and the back end, and you can confidently talk about it, you're going to kill it in an interview. Trust me, if you could talk about front end, back end, database, how you've connected everything, whether it's with Java, Python, JavaScript, if you could check that box to have at least one good full stack project, you're looking good. YouTube. This is my little hack that I did. So if you can create YouTube videos of you talking about things, let's say data structures, algorithms, or software engineer topics, and you can put that on your resume, basically the employer doesn't even really need the interview. They already see the videos of you out there talking about these topics. So in my experience, I made YouTube videos before I started applying to jobs, and I talked about computer science related topics and software engineering. I made those videos, put them on my resume, my channel on my resume, and I'm telling you, it made a huge difference. I went into the interview, they already watched my videos, they already knew that I could basically confidently talk about computer science related topics, and it just felt like they didn't even need to ask me any questions. They're like, it seemed like, hey, you already proved to us that you know quite a bit because we've seen it in your YouTube videos. So I felt like they went really easy with the interview questions because they already had proof that I knew what I was talking about. So this is really nice because you're not on the spot. You can edit your videos and practice until you get a perfect video down, and then it basically is doing your interviews before you go talk to your employer. I highly recommend that strategy. And the other one that is just a tip when interviewing, you want to be passionate, you want to be enthusiastic about the career. Just as long as you express that you love troubleshooting, you love problem solving, and you love learning new things, that's what this career is all about. It's all about troubleshooting, it's all about learning new things, and working with a team. So if an employer can see that you're very enthusiastic about learning new things, about troubleshooting, and you're very excited, you can communicate about it, they're going to know that, hey, this person learned a language and they created a project by themselves, front end to back end. We know that this person can come into our company and learn a new framework or a tech, and they'll do just fine. They're going to learn. They're going to troubleshoot. They're going to figure it out. So yeah, that's my advice. This is just my perspective and my opinion. Hopefully this helps. So aspiring software engineers out there, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Yeah, hopefully this helps at least a few of you guys out there. And that's it. Thanks for watching.